New details this morning about the migrant children who have been separated from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar now says there are currently 2,047 children in the care of his department. That number's down from the more than 2,300 originally taken from their parents. It comes as we get our first look inside a facility that's housing some of these children, and it's real-life, unfiltered video, not the sanitized pictures that were provided by the U.S. government. This video, first seen on the Rachel Maddow show, was secretly recorded last week by a teacher from Cayuga Centers in New York. The center is a little different from what we've been seeing. The children stay here only during the day and sleep at the homes of foster parents at night. The teacher, who wants to remain anonymous, says she started investigating after seeing a large influx of young children coming alone to the center and discovered many were separated from their parents at the border, though we should note we don't know the background of every child seen in the video. The woman quit her job on Friday and is critical of the separation policy. She describes some of the emotionless interactions between the teachers and children, telling MSNBC, quote, "We are not allowed to know what's going on with the child. We're not allowed to ask any of the kids questions. If the child is not okay, the only thing we're allowed to ask is, do you want to speak to your case manager? Do you want to speak to your clinician? This is not okay." She adds, "We're not allowed to hug the kids. We're not allowed to touch them at all. I decided not to follow the rule this week. This week, I hugged them. I don't care anymore." In this clip provided by the former teacher, a young girl cries for her mother. It's not known why they were separated.
¿Tienes hambre? ¿Y por qué lloras? ¿Quieres hablar con tu papá? ¿Quieres hablar con tu mamá? ¿Quieres que llame a tu trabajadora? ¿Sí? ¿Cómo te llamas? Jessica. Ya, Jessica, no llores, ¿ok? ¿Tú viniste con tu mamá? ¿No? ¿Viniste sola? ¿Con tu hermano? ¿Ah?
Con mi hermano.
¿Con tu hermano? ¿Y cuántos años tiene tu hermano? 10. Mira, agua. ¿Y dónde está tu mamá? ¿Está en inmigración? No, ¿no sabes dónde está? ¿No sabes dónde?
Allá en los estados.
¿En los estados? ¿No sabes en qué estado está? Oh, en Virginia. ¿Pero has hablado con ella? ¿O quieres hablar con ella otra vez? ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que hablaste con ella? ¿La semana pasada? ¿No has hablado esta semana? ¿No has hablado con ella? ¿No te han venido a ver para hablar con ella? Ok, so yo voy a mandar el mensaje. ¿Cómo te llamas otra vez? ¿Cómo? Jessica. ¿Y cuál es tu apellido para decirle al mister?
Joining me now is MSNBC's Mariana Atencio, who's been covering the story for weeks now. Dr. Jennifer Havens is the director of child psychiatry at the Bellevue Hospital Center. She's overseeing doctors treating separated migrant children in New York City. And Dr. Jamie Howard is a clinical psychologist with the Child Mind Institute. Thank you to all of you for being here. Mariana, you've seen something different. You've also been on the road and you've spoken to children who have been separated from their parents.
I spent the whole of last week, Ali, talking to children like the one in the video, children who were separated from their parents at the border. And it is so traumatizing what they've lived through that I don't think we can even begin to grasp the trauma that these children have experienced, because they're doubly traumatized. It's the violence that they're fleeing from, it's the harrowing journey, and then when they think that they've crossed over the finish line, then they get torn from their parents. Some kids telling me they weren't given an explanation as to why they were being separated, when they were going to be able to see their parents again. I spoke to kids who had been separated from their parents for 5-6 days, and sometimes I had to stop mid-interview because the kids were sobbing uncontrollably. I want to play a soundbite for you of Ashley and her mom, Wendy Gonzalez. They both came from Honduras, and they were both separated for 5 days. Little Ashley is 10. This is my conversation with them. What is the most painful thing?
¿Cuál es su pregunta?
o qué es lo más doloroso de este proceso por el que acaban de pasar? What strikes you the most about this process?
El separarnos un poco de nuestros hijos.
Having been separated, how many times did you get to see each other?
¿Cuánto tiempo?
¿Qué tantas veces se lograron ver?
Pues fíjese que cada vez que yo quería, porque solo me dividía una reja de ella.
So
Entonces,
I could see her through some sort of fence.
a cada rato le hablaba,
So I tried to talk to her through that fence.
le daba aliento para que
I gave her
fuera
hope
más fuerte.
so that she could be strong. Talking to your mom through a fence, not being able to touch her, it is similar to the symptoms that I've seen in kids when I've been to the Syrian border, Ali. Kids who are fleeing dangerous situations, they are in limbo, they've lost all of their belongings, and also you see the other end of the spectrum, which is they talk sometimes so matter of fact about
right,
the
so
violence.
you don't really get that.
And it's the sense of, you know, their childhood, their innocence has been taken from them.
Yeah. Dr. Havens, referring to that initial clip that we watched from the Cayuga centers, you found that very disturbing, that little girl who was being reported. Tell me what you saw when you saw that.
Well, you know, attachment between parents and children is like air. It's a basic need we have.
Right.
And she's so distraught and so frightened, and you heard her emphasis. She just wants to talk to her mother. She just wants to know that her mother is still there. And that's the issue with trying to help these kids, is that, you know, the classic approach to treating traumatized kids is you make them safe first.
Right. And there's no way this child's going to feel safe in the absence of her
Until
mother.
she's back with her parents.
Right.
I mean, having contact helps, because that's a very young child. That looked like maybe a 2-year-old. So, you know, they need contact. So I know they're really struggling to do that for these kids, but it's like taking away, you know, your life source. And we don't separate children from their parents unless we absolutely have
and courts
to.
have showed that the fact that there's a nicer home somewhere else is not enough of a cause. Children's attachment to their parents is
hardwired.
Yeah.
Hardwired.
Dr. Howard, I think Mariana said something very interesting. It's not obvious that these kids show signs of distress. You are experts, so you see it. But kids can look very resilient.
They can, but we don't want to be confused by behavior that seems to be calm. They're probably having what we call a freeze response. So the fight, flight, freeze response goes off after we're exposed to dangerous, uncertain situations. And it can keep going off, and it can sort of make us look numb and frozen or calm if we don't know what we're actually looking at. But make no mistake, these children are not okay. They're not calm. They're not doing well.
And the younger the child, the more likely their only option they're going to have in the face of a trauma is freezing, because they can't fight and they can't flight. Excuse my grammar, but so a lot of when I see some of these kids on TV, the little ones, it's like they're not there, right? They've just gone away because the emotions
out of body almost.
Yes, the emotions are so unbearable.
So the teacher who said we're not allowed to ask them questions, we're not allowed to touch them, we're not allowed to hug them. How do you compensate for this? If these kids are separated from their parents, what is the best service we can offer them?
Getting them reunited.
Well, first of all,
it's not having them separated from their parents.
And,
the best
and we
service
do
can
need
offer.
them to have contact. That's how they regulate their emotions.
Right.
So they really need that hugging, that comfort from a kind adult who can give them some information and physical assurance.
And you know, they're worried about their parents. That's you know, no matter how young they are, the kids are going to worry where they are, and given the circumstances of what they're fleeing from and what they just went through, they're also worried about their parents. You know, and that'll be more common in the older kids, but
meaning concern. They're worried.
They're worried
about their parents' safety or their parents.
Yes.
And sometimes they're not even told anything. Some of the families that I've spoken to, they weren't given an explanation. You know, we're separating you for your mommy because of XYZ. You'll be able to see her tomorrow. Another thing, Ali, is that they're not spoken to in their language. This is not only Spanish that these kids speak. I just got an urgent notice from the Raíces organization, one of the NGOs on the ground. translators desperately needed for Zapoteca, Nahua, Mam, all of these indigenous languages that are spoken in countries like Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras.
Right. So to what degree, this is an interesting point, when talking to these kids, to what degree do young kids, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, can they handle the amount of information? This is a big deal, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I would struggle with the information that I'm separated from my kids. Can these kids be told more?
Always tell kids the truth, because they know when you're lying, and you can't protect them from what it's already been done to them. They've already been
Their parents have been wrenched away from them.
Yes, right.
You might as well tell them that's
the most reassuring thing you can do, other than getting them in contact and getting them, is to tell them, to the extent that you can, you know, what is happening. And I know the folks working with these kids in New York City that's their goal, is to make the kids connected and safe. And you know, the clip you showed was a teacher.
Yeah.
Now, there are people in this building who know what's going on with the kids, and who are working with the kids and their family, and who are working with the kids clinically to try to help them. Teachers don't have the same level of information, say, that a case manager or a clinician would.
Right.
And they're actually told not to try to handle the kids' mental health problems. So that wasn't, you know, an inhumane thing. That's just the way we work that stuff.
Got it. All right. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there, and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.